Hello, good afternoon, my learners.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
So, are you all fine?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir. Yes, sir.
Today it is a new paper. So, the
Yes,
paper
sir.
code is BSOC-102. So, basically, this paper contains with the Indian society or sociology in India. So, in our last classes, we have been discussing about the sociology and its perspective, and basically the discourse in sociology and the basic concepts. So these are we are using in sociology. So, but in this paper, so it is somehow different, and it is related with Indian society, Indian culture, Indian heritage, and that different term uses in this Indian society, and our cultural heritage and our Indological discourse. So these are the different aspect of Indian society. So Indian society, this is the basic paper, and that we called it's a sociology in India. So basically, the first block. It is based on the Indological discourse, and within these, we can study about the understanding India and major discourse. What are we got from this Indian society? We got from this ancient Indian society, and medieval Indian society, and present Indian society. So you know that Indian society, it's a very ancient and old society. So uh, so so Indian society is quite old and complex. You know that Indian society, it is very quite old and complex. Uh, about the depth of its past, a different opinion has come. So basically, some popular estimated it is stated that it has covered a span of 5,000 years. যে କିଛି historian ଆଉ କିଛି anthropologist କହନ୍ତି ଯେ Indian society ର span ହଉଛି around 5,000 years. କିଛି ମଧ୍ୟ କୁହନ୍ତି it will be 2,000 years. But somehow the 5,000 years, it may be true for the origin of the Indian society. So Indian society, or Indian cultural heritage, it is very one of the most ancient and extensive and varied among uh, all those which make up the cultural heritage world. So Indian society, this is one of the most important and one of the prominent ancient society of the world, and within this mankind. So that is why Indian society, it became one of the ancient and older society of the world. So that is why, so these are some characteristics of the Indian society. Before I goes to this topic, so let's we have to discuss about the different characteristics of the Indian society. First, we should have to know that Indian cultural tradition is ancient and continuous. So we know that the cultural tradition of India, it is very old and ancient, and it is a continuing process. Still, Indian society, it is existing and developing stages. So that is why so it is one of the important characteristics. Second important characteristics, that unity in diversity. Unity in diversity. So this is almost one of the major characteristics of Indian society. So that we call unity in diversity. Where there is a diversity, there is a unity, and where there is a unity there is a diversity. So Indian society, where mostly different people they are living, and different religious group, cultural groups, ethnic groups, racial groups, linguistic groups, different custom, different culture. So that we see from this Indian society. But after all, a diversified culture, still we are united. So that is why unity in diversity, this is the important and foremost characteristics of Indian society. So third, so that we called dharma is the life. So that we called dharma is the life center of the society. So this is one of the most ancient, and from the Veda, from the Purana, from the Hinduism, from the Islam, or from this Jainism and Buddhism, it is clear that all these major sets of religion are here, and dharma became the life chances of the society. So that is why we call it the Indian society. Next, the scientific aspect of the Indian heritage. So the heritage of Indian society, it is very ancient, noble in the world. So that is why, so all that heritage we see in this Indian society, so all are these in scientific in nature. So that is why scientific aspect of the Indian heritage. So let us come to the another, so that is called the spirit of tolerance. So Indian society, we know that the spirit of tolerance, it is a synthetic approach of the religion. So every religion we see a spirit of tolerance. So basically, in Hinduism, we see the tolerance spirit of tolerance. In Islam, in Buddhism, in Jainism, in Sikhism, in animism, we see the spirit of tolerance. So that is why it became a synthetic approach. It is a mixture approach, so that we call it a synthetic approach, and it's a scientific approach. So, so another thing is that harmony with nature. So, in Indian society, the people worshipping the nature. So, basically, in animism or the tribal religion and the rural culture of Indian society, so they worship the nature, they love the nature, and basically within the people we make a harmony and social harmony. So that is why, so that we call it a harmony with nature. So these are the basic characteristics of the Indian tradition and Indian culture. So let us come to the point. So all these characteristics and nature of the Indian society, uh, so basically, we got from this ancient literature, and we got all these things from this ancient scripts and heritage. So that is why, uh, so it has some Indological discourse. So Indological discourse, Indology, it is a very new topic. So Indology, it's a world topic, but it is a new term in sociology. So that we call it's Indology. So if we
ସାର୍ଙ୍କ ନେଟ୍ ପ୍ରୋବ୍ଲେମ୍ ହେଲା ବୋଧହୁଏ ନୁହେଁ ପିଲେ?
ହଁ ସାର୍ ଶୁଣାଯାଉନି।
ନା ହଁ ସାର୍ ଆସିଗଲେ। ହିମାଂଶୁ
ଶୁଭା ଯାଉଛି? ହଁ.
ହଁ ଶୁଭା ହଉଛି, କୁହ କଣ୍ଟିନ୍ୟୁ କର।
So that is called, it is an independent discipline with Indian society as subject matter. Indian society as a subject matter. So am I audible?
Yes,
Am I
sir.
audible?
ୟେସ୍ ସାର୍।
Yes,
ସାର୍
sir.
ଇଣ୍ଡୋଲୋଜି ବିଷୟରେ ଟିକେ କୁହନ୍ତୁ।
Indology is both an approach. Indology is both an approach to study
Sir.
the the Indian society
Hmm.
and also an independent discipline with Indian society
Hmm.
are full stop in the
Hmm.
form of Indology. In the form of
Sir.
Indology consists of
Sir.
studying language,
Sir.
belief,
Sir.
ideas,
Sir.
customs, taboos,
Hmm.
codes, institutions, rituals,
Hmm.
ceremonies of culture, ceremonies of culture. So
Acha.
that we call it's Indology. So let us see. Uh, so how Indology it is an approach and it is so that we call it's the Indological discourse. So Indology it is an approach that study about the Indian society. So in simple terms, so that we call Indology or Indian studies is the academic study of history and culture. So that the Indological aspect it has derived from this history and culture. So it is not an independent. Because it is related with history and cultures. So all these Indologists they borrow the ideas from the history and cultures and from the language and from the literature of India, and such is it's a subset of so that we call the Asian studies. So basically, so that we call the Indological view. So it's a very new a dimension of sociological topic in so that we are using in Indian society. Sub concept of theories and framework that the scholars claim to have emerged from their study of Indian civilization. Some scholars in sociology, some scholars in anthropology, some scholars in history, they think that it is so that study it derived from this Indian civilization, or so that you call from this the great civilization of the Indus Valley civilization. So they primarily adopt a historical and comparative approach. So that approach we study in Indology. So it is basis. It is on the basis of comparative and it is a historical approach. So from that history, the sociologist or the Indian sociologist, they know everything about the Indian culture, Indian tradition, Indian social institutions. So like caste, like Varna, so like religion, so like custom and tradition taboos, so etc all that things, we got from this endological aspect. So that is why Indology it is a broad topic, it is a very finest topic, so that we are using to study about the Indian society. So, my dear learners, so in this topic, we have to study about the what are how the Indian society it became emerged, and what are the different perspective we got from time to time. ସମୟରୁ ସମୟ କ୍ରମେ ଭାରତୀୟ ସମାଜରେ କିଭଳି ଭାବରେ ପରିବର୍ତ୍ତନ ହେଇଛି ଏବଂ ଯୋଉ ଭାରତରେ ଯୋଉ ଇଣ୍ଡୋଲୋଜିକାଲ ଆସ୍ପେକ୍ଟ ଆଇଛି, so Indology it is also related with Indologist, they also related with Orientalist. So Orientalist also it is a word, it is somehow similar to the Indologist. So Orientology, so that is called the Orientology, 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 the study of indigenous and the wisdom of the
and the
ancient.
wisdom of the ancient.
Hello.
Hello?
So am I
So,
audible? Hello, my dear student. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Sir,
Yes, sir. Yes,
yes,
sir.
sir. Yes.
So,
Sir,
हाँ पिले तुमे किए बोधे म्यूट म्यूट टे समस्ते करो कहीं ना टिके रिसाउंड होची बेले बेले सो ओरिएंटोलॉजी it is also similar to the study of Indology. So it study the indigenous wisdom and ancient East. So that we call it Orient. Orientologies are the Orientalist. They study about the East. So East that comprise not with Indian society but with South East Asian countries. So automatically South Asian countries. So India also belongs. So that is why the sociologist or the anthropologist or the historian who study about the topics of the East, we know that East and West, India is the best. So that is why Western culture is somehow different from this Eastern culture. So those people or those philosophers or those historians or those sociologists, anthropologists, they study about the Eastern culture. So that we call it say Orientalist. So that is why, but the Indology, it is somehow different. Indology or Indian studies is the academic study of history and culture. So specifically, the Indology study about the Indian society, but the Orientalists they study about the Eastern society. So Eastern society, within this Eastern society, India also belongs. So that is why somehow it is a different from Orientalist and Indology. But the basic nature of the Orientalist and Indologist, um, uh, almost the same. So that is why, so let us come to the point. So how far the Indian sociologists they concerned about the Indological perspective. So so it is stated that these are some observations on Indian society since the third century BC. So whenever the foreign travelers who included the Romans, the Byzantine Greeks, Jews, Chinese, and from 1000 AD onwards, Arab, Turks, and Afghans and Persians, they came to India and they have their enormous knowledge and they have their eagerness to study about the Indian society because they became the inventors and they should try. They had tried to and they have eagerness about the knowledge about the Indian society. So you know that the Greek historian Megasthenes visited India in 302 BC, and ambassador he became the ambassador of Seleucus and founder of the Seleucid Empire. So that is why from the Chandragupta Maurya, Ashok's grandfather Chandragupta Maurya, during this period, Megasthenes come and uh, he has written about the Indica, the book. So that we call it Indica. In Indica, uh, he has just he comes to the Magadha kingdom and the capital of the Pataliputra, or that you call it's a family putra, or that of now present name is Patna. Uh, so uh, that the Megasthenes in his Indica, he tries to explain how there are the seven different classes. We got from that period of Chandragupta Maurya. So that we call the shepherd are the hunters, artisans, soldiers, overseas inspectors, and administrative tax appointed by the kings are the magistrates, councillors. So from the ancestor official in king's administration. So all these things, Megasthenes wrote in his books Indica, which on the basis of the direct observation, सीधा सड़क से जेतेबेले इंडियन सोसाइटी को आसिले बा मगध को आसिले बा चंद्रगुप्त मौर्यंकर किंगडम को आसिले सेतेबेले से ऑब्जर्वेशन कले से केतेगुडे जिंस को ऑब्जर्वेशन कले बेसिकली शेफर्ड्स एंड हंटर्स जो माने अछंती जो माने शिकारी अछंती बा जो माने आर्टिजन्स अछंती किछि काम दाम करूचंती कुंभार वैश्य जे जो माने अछंती सेमानको ऊपर किंबा काउंसिलर्स ऑफ ऑफिशियल्स फ्रॉम द किंग्स एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन सेमानको ऊपर. So a lot of studies had been observed by Megasthenes in his book Indica. So सेमती अल्बरुनी बोली जने मध्य थिले जने परिव्राजक थिले. So so appears to be very familiar words and Sanskrit sources and mention four Varnas theory. Al-Baruni has observed from this Indian society the four Varnas. So these are the four Varnas he had written in his books. So specifically the Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Sudra, the four Varnas about the Indian society, but he did not know the local language. Uh, but his writing could be seen as not very clear. But his study about the Indian society, he observed the urban political centers, but he does not mention the caste system. He only mention about the Varna system. He does not mention the caste system. So that is why another man, a historian, Abdul Razak uh, Samrandi, was on the important mission to make diplomats relations with Timurid Emperor and when he most powerful city in India, Vijayanagaram. So Abdul Razak also studied Vijayanagaram. So these are the historical journey from this Indian society and how Indian society it has been become very continuing process of development. How we see how the Indian society it started from the ancient period to present now, and what are the recent changes in Indian society, so that the Indological or the Indian society study all these things. So Portuguese also they study the Portuguese. So that Gracia de Horta, one of the important Portuguese and historian and philosopher Gracia de Horta, in he Gracia de Horta became the first man who uses the term caste in Indian society. ଗ୍ରାସିଆ ଦେବତା ଜଣେ ପର୍ତ୍ତୁଗୀଜ ପରିବ୍ରାଜକ ଥିଲେ ବା ପର୍ତ୍ତୁଗୀଜ ଫିଲୋସୋଫର ଥିଲେ, ହିଷ୍ଟୋରିଆନ ଥିଲେ. ସେ ପ୍ରଥମେ ଗୋଟେ ନୂଆ ଟର୍ମ ଯୋଉଟା କି କାଷ୍ଟ ଗୋଟେ ଶବ୍ଦ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆରେ ଥିଲା, କିନ୍ତୁ କାଷ୍ଟ ଶବ୍ଦର ଫାଷ୍ଟ ୟୁଜେସ୍ କରିଥିଲେ. କାଷ୍ଟ ଶବ୍ଦଠୁ କି ଡେରିଭେଟ୍ କରିନାହାନ୍ତି, କିନ୍ତୁ ୟୁଜେସ୍ ଦି ଟର୍ମ କନସେପ୍ଟ ଦି ଟର୍ମ କାଷ୍ଟ ଇନ୍ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆନ ସୋସାଇଟି. So you see, how the Indian society became very ancient, and how Indian society its history is very beautiful, and the culture and civilization of Indian society, the trend of that Indian civilization, it goes towards a modern civilization. So in that ancient society, Indian civilization became one of the finest and modern civilization of the world. So we see from this, we see from this Indus Valley civilization. ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ ସିନ୍ଧୁ ସଭ୍ୟତା କଥା ଆମେ ଦେଖିଛନ୍ତି, ସେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ ଦେଖିଛନ୍ତି how the architect and how the town planning and what are the social relationship among the peoples in Indus Valley civilization. Indus Valley civilization ଆମେ ଶିଖିଛନ୍ତି ଯେ କେମିତି ଭାବରେ Indian civilization is one of the important civilization. ଏଠି different races ମାନେ ଥିଲେ, ଏଠି different ବର୍ଣ୍ଣ group ଥିଲା, ଏଠି different caste group ଥିଲା, ଏଠି kings ଥିଲେ, ଏଠି courtiers ଥିଲେ. So everything. So that is why Indian society became different. So my dear learners, so it is my request to you, please you go through this box ଭିତରେ ବହୁତ important କଥା ସବୁ ଲେଖା ଯାଇଛି. ବକ୍ସ ଟା ହଉଛି ଗୋଟେ important ଗୋଟେ ପଏଣ୍ଟ. ସୋ ତେଣୁକରି ସମସ୍ତେ ତୁମେ ବକ୍ସ ଭିତରକୁ ସମସ୍ତେ ଏଣ୍ଟ୍ରି କରିବ, ବକ୍ସ ରେ କଣ ଲେଖା ହେଇଛି ଟିକେ ପଢିବାକୁ ଚେଷ୍ଟା କରିବ. ସୋ ଲେଟ୍ ଅସ୍ କମ୍ ଟୁ ଦିସ୍ ଇଣ୍ଡୋଲୋଜିକାଲ ପର୍ସପେକ୍ଟିଭ ଇନ୍ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆନ ସୋସାଇଟି. ଆମ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆନ ସୋସାଇଟିରେ କଣ କଣ ସବୁ ଇଣ୍ଡୋଲୋଜିକାଲ ପର୍ସପେକ୍ଟିଭ ହେଇଛି ବା ଇଣ୍ଡିଆନ ସୋସାଇଟି କଣ କେମିତି ଡେଭଲପମେଣ୍ଟ ହେଇଛି. So this is the prime thing. So Indological writings like, so that you call the Indica, ଆମେ Indica को mention करचंती, Al-Baruni को mention करचंती. So that we call the Abdul Fazil Alam. So these are so the early colonialism period has started. The Portuguese adventures and administration and the merchants and missionaries. So automatically how who continue to write about India ସେମାନେ କାହିଁକି ଇଣ୍ଡିଆ ଉପରେ ଲେଖିବାକୁ ଚାହୁଁଥିଲେ ନା ବେସିକାଲି ଯେତେବେଳେ ସେମାନେ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆକୁ କଲୋନିଆଲିଜିମ ଭିତରକୁ ଆଣିବାକୁ ଚାହୁଁଥିଲେ, ଇଣ୍ଡିଆକୁ ଉପନିବେଶବାଦ ଭିତରେ ଆଣିବାକୁ ଚାହୁଁଥିଲେ, so automatically they have their eagerness, so they should have their knowledge about the Indian society and culture. ତେଣୁ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆନ ସୋସାଇଟି ଆଣ୍ଡ କଲଚରକୁ ଜାଣିବାକୁ ହେଲେ ସେମାନେ ହିଷ୍ଟୋରିଆନ ଆଉ ଯୋଉ ପର୍ସିଆନ ଲାଙ୍ଗୁଏଜ ଅଛି, ଯୋଉ ତାମ୍ର ଲିପି ଅଛି ବା ଯୋଉ ଓଲ୍ଡ ଆନ୍ସିଏଣ୍ଟ ଆର୍କିଟେକ୍ଚର ଅଛି ତାକୁ ଲକ୍ଷ୍ୟ କରି ଇଣ୍ଡିଆନ ସୋସାଇଟିକୁ ଅବଜର୍ଭ କରି ନୂଆ ନୂଆ କଥା ସବୁ ଜାଣିବାକୁ ପାଉଥିଲେ। ଆଣ୍ଡ ଆଫ୍ଟର ଦ୍ୟାଟ their main intention is to capture the Indian society, Indian people, Indian culture and Indian society. So that is why their idea is so somehow it's a very motivated. So basically, they cannot succeeded due to this older religion of the world, Hinduism and Islam. So Hinduism and Islam, so it stand like a wall to defend all this thought different enemies who invade India. So, but in another way, they tactically they entered into this Indian society and they mix with the people, and for their commercial business purpose, they control the Indian administration. So that is why the Indians, the Indian people, and they have their eagerness to know about the Indian people. ସେମାନେ ଭାରତୀୟ ଲୋକମାନଙ୍କ ବିଷୟରେ ସେମାନଙ୍କର ଜାଣିବାକୁ ବହୁତ ଆଗ୍ରହ ହଉଥିଲା। ସେଇଥିପାଇଁ ଯେତେ ସବୁ ସ୍କଲାର୍ସ ଆସୁଥିଲେ, ଯେତେ ସବୁ ହିଷ୍ଟୋରିଆନ ଆସୁଥିଲେ, ଯେମିତିକି ଡୁମଣ୍ଟ ଆଣ୍ଡ ପୋକକ୍, ଲୁଇ ଡୁମଣ୍ଟ ଗୋଟେ ଜଣେ ହଉଛନ୍ତି ୱାନ୍ ଅଫ୍ ଦି ଇମ୍ପୋର୍ଟାଣ୍ଟ ଆନ୍ଥ୍ରୋପୋଲୋଜିଷ୍ଟ ଅଫ୍ ଦି ୱାର୍ଲଡ, ଲୁଇ ଡୁମୋ, LOUIE, ଲୁଇ ଡୁମୋ, DUMONT, ଲୁଇ ଡୁମଣ୍ଟ ତାକୁ କୁହାଯାଏ। ତାଙ୍କର ଗୋଟେ ବୁକ୍ ଅଛି ହୋମୋ ହାୟରକିୟସ୍, ସୋ ଦ୍ୟାଟ୍ ୟୁ କଲ୍ଡ ହୋମୋ ହାୟରକିୟସ୍। ହୋମୋ ହାୟରକିୟସ୍ ଗୋଟେ ବୁକ୍ ଅଛି, ସେ ବୁକ୍ ରେ ସେ ମେନସନ କରିଛନ୍ତି while it may appear the classical Indology which works in a historical perspective is too divorced from sociology. So that is why sociological actual temporal methods of sociologist must familiarize himself with not merely living language but with classical literature Indology. So ସେମାନଙ୍କର ମତ ହେଉଛି ଯେ କେବଳ ହିଷ୍ଟୋରିଆନ ଆଉ ସଂସ୍କୃତ ଆଉ ପର୍ସିଆନ ଲାଙ୍ଗୁଏଜ ଠାରୁ ଇଣ୍ଡୋଲୋଜି ଆସିନାହିଁ, but time by time so history itself converted into this Indian society, and that is why sociology it became or Indian sociology it became independent branch of Indology. So that is why the scholars like Boge, Dumezil, Marshall Marsh, A.M. Hockard, so they wrote about extensively about the Indo-European comparison, but balance each other in terms of historical and sociological analysis. ଯେତେ ସବୁ historian ଆସିଛନ୍ତି, ଯେତେ ସବୁ anthropologist ଆସିଛନ୍ତି, ଯେତେ ସବୁ colonial super power administrator ଆସିଛନ୍ତି, ସେମାନଙ୍କର assumption different aspect ଅଛି, but their intention is to how to study about the Indian society and how to administer the Indian society. So that is why some basic assumption is there. Indology ର କେତେ ଗୋଟେ basic assumption ଅଛି ଯାହାକୁ ଆମେ କହୁଛନ୍ତି ସେ assumption କ'ଣ ଅଛି ନା characteristics କ'ଣ ଅଛି ନା India had a glorious past and understand it one must go back from the sacred books. ଆମେ ଯେତେ ସବୁ sacred books ଅଛି, sacred philosophical book ଅଛି, religious book ଅଛି, ସେ ancient times ରେ ଯେତେ ସବୁ ଲେଖା ଯାଇଛି, both are philosophical and so that as cultural traditions of India are rooted in this text. ସେ ଯୋଉ text ରେ ସବୁ କ'ଣ ଅଛି ନା automatically all that philosophical and cultural tradition of Indian society it had written. So that is why so India it has the glorious past. So these ancient books reveal the real ideas of the Indian culture and society. One must understand these books to chart out the future development of India. ଆମେ ଯଦି ସେଇ ଯୋଉ ସବୁ ବହି ଗୁଡ଼ିକ ଅଛି ବା sacred books ଅଛି, sacred text ଅଛି, relating to Indian heritage and culture and religion, ତାକୁ ଯଦି ପଢିବା ତାହେଲେ so we can study about the future development of the Indian society. So in these books also institutions should be set up to encourage the study of ancient Indian text and Persian literature and poetry. So you know that the ancient literature of Indian society, it goes to the Sanskrit and Parsi. Parsi or the Persian language. The Persian language, so that we called, and the Sanskrit language became the mother tongue of Indian society. But day by day, so all these things we got from the history, and we got from the archaeology. It is clear that the ancient Indian people or the ancient Indian culture, so it is purely based and written on Sanskrit and Persian language. So that is why uh, the Persian language and the Sanskrit became the root language where the poetry and all these things and all these religious script had written. So that is why it is one of the interesting things. So these are the assumption of the Indologist. So, but if we come to the colonial period, ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ colonial period କୁ ଆସିଲା ବା ଇଣ୍ଡିଆ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଉପନିବେଶବାଦ ଭିତରକୁ ଆସିଲା, ଯେତେବେଳେ ବ୍ରିଟିଶର୍ସ ମାନେ when the Britishers come to India, Britishers came to India uh, for their commercial business, and they started business, small business, but they are very clever. So they first they observed the Indian society, and through their missionaries activities they tries to dominate the Indian society and dominate the Indian culture and the Indian people. So that is why they observe that Indian society, it is dominated by the Hinduism and Islam, and the Brahminical perspective became the root source of Indian culture, and they dominate the Indian society. The Brahmin people, they dominate in Indian society. So that is why one of the most eminent historian and British administrator, so William Jones and Henry Thomas, Pollard Brooke, and Nathaniel Held. So they formed the Asiatic Society. But Asiatic Society जोटा कि 1787 मसीहारे विलियम जोन्स ताको एस्टाब्लिश करथिले एवं तांको हेल्प करथिले हेनरी थॉमस क्लोरब्रुक एंड नाथानियल हाल्ड. से माने गोटे बेंगल रे बा बेंगल रे गोटे एशियाटिक सोसाइटी से माने जोटे एस्टाब्लिश करथिले इन 1787, and so that they also started a journal, so Asiatics Research. So that book or the journal was devoted to anthropological and Indological interest, such as study of Sanskrit and comparative jurisprudence and comparative religion also. So you may remember that the Asiatic Society of Bengal were the first European scholar to recognize the common ancestry of Sanskrit and Greek, Latin and other European language. ତେଣୁ ୱିଲିୟମ ଜୋନ୍ସ ଜଣେ କି ବ୍ରିଟିଶର୍ସ, ସେ ସଂସ୍କୃତ ଭାଷାରେ ମଧ୍ୟ ବହୁତ କଥା ଲେଖିଛନ୍ତି. କାଳିଦାସ କୁ ତାକୁ ଟ୍ରାନ୍ସଲେସନ କରିକି ତାକୁ ସଂସ୍କୃତରେ ଲେଖିଛନ୍ତି, ସଂସ୍କୃତରୁ ତାକୁ ଇଂଲିଶରେ ଲେଖିଛନ୍ତି. So William Jones became the first administrator of Britishers or colonial rulers who has a special interest to study about the Indian society. So that is why he basically studied the Indian society. So how and in which way it influenced the Indological perspective. We know that Alexander Doe translated the Persian history of India and understanding of Hinduism and Sanskrit. जने अलेक्जेंडर दो बोली जने थिले जे कि पर्शियन हिस्ट्री आउ अंडरस्टैंडिंग ऑफ हिंदुइज्म जोटा कि संस्कृत रे ताकु से डिस्क्राइब करिथिले. सेमती so they also mentioned that Alexander Doe mentioned that तांकर जेतेबेले इंडोलॉजिकल स्टडी जेतेबेले कले सर्वे कले सेतेबेले देखिले how the Indian society it overemphasized on the Brahminical view or the dominance of Brahmins in Indian society. So, uh, basically, the actual behavior and culture being practiced in Indian society. So that is why so these studies are important for the Indian sociologist because the Britishers they study the Indian society and they study about the caste, about the Hinduism. So that is why they can dominate the Indian nation. ସେମାନେ ଭାରତକୁ ଡୋମିନେଟ୍ କରିବା ପାଇଁ ବା ଭାରତକୁ ଜାଣିବା ପାଇଁ ଚିହ୍ନିବା ପାଇଁ ବା ସେମାନଙ୍କର କମର୍ସିଆଲ ବିଜନେସକୁ ବଢାଇବା ପାଇଁ ସେମାନେ ଚାହୁଁଥିଲେ ଯେ ଭାରତରେ ଯୋଉ ବ୍ରାହ୍ମଣବାଦ ଅଛି ଯୋଉଟା କି ଡୋମିନେଟ୍ କରି ରଖିଛି କାଷ୍ଟକୁ ଡୋମିନେଟ୍ କରି ରଖିଛି ବର୍ଣ୍ଣ ବ୍ୟବସ୍ଥା ଅଛି ରିଲିଜିୟନକୁ ଇମ୍ପୋର୍ଟାନ୍ସ ଦିଆଯାଉଛି ତେଣୁକରି ସେମାନେ ଚିନ୍ତା କଲେ ଯେ ୟା ଉପରେ ଯଦି ଷ୍ଟଡି କରା ନଯିବ ତାହେଲେ ଅଟୋମେଟିକାଲି ୱି କ୍ୟାନଟ୍ ଷ୍ଟଡି ଆବାଉଟ୍ ଦି ଇଣ୍ଡିଆନ୍ ସୋସାଇଟି ଏବଂ ପରବର୍ତ୍ତୀ ସମୟରେ ସେମାନେ इंडियन सोसाइटी जो एक्चुअल बिहेवियर अच्छी कल्चर अच्छी ट्रेडिशन अच्छी ताकू स्टडी करने को चेष्टा कले बट आफ्टर दी ब्रिटिशर्स केम इनटू पावर एंड इन 19th century and 18th century the real indological perspective and discourse we have see in this sociological literature basically the sociologist like so that you call the B.N. Seal, B.N. Seal, S.B. Ketkar, B.K. Sarkar, so Gobind Sadasiv Gure, G.S. Gure, Louis Dumo, among the others, they study about the indological aspect of the Indian society. So another, so the group of sociologists like A.K. Kumaraswamy, Radha Kamal Mukherjee, D.P. Mukherjee, D.P. Mukherjee means Durjiti Prasad Mukherjee, G.S. Gure, Louis Dumo. So these are the important Indian sociologists. In that time, they study about the Indological literature. They study about the Indian society through the culture, its tradition, its races, its caste, its varna, and religion. So that is why. So they study. So one of the eminent Indian sociologists, G.S. Gure. G.S. Gure, regarded as the father of Indian society, Indian sociology. G.S. Gure, Gobind Sadasiv Gure, the man who has written about the caste and race in India. Gobind Sadasiv Gure, who had written a book on caste and race in India, and so that is his masterpiece. So basically, from that book, on that book, he got his PhD, and his guide was W.H. Rivers. In Britain, in Oxford University, his guide was W.H. Rivers. So the caste and race in India, it is a masterpiece of Indian society, it is a masterpiece of Indological behavior, Indological perspective. So that is why his friends also came Kapadia. He has written a book on family and marriage in India. K.M. Kapadia, an important Indian sociologist, K.M. Kapadia, the friend of G.S. Gure, he had written a book on marriage and family in India. So, so another book is written by Professor Srimati Iravati Karbe, the family and kinship in India. So these are the important books. So, whereas Louis Dumo, the English anthropologist and English sociologist Louis Dumo, he has written a book on Homo hierarchius. Homo hierarchius is a book. In his books, Louis Dumo tries to study about the Varna theory and caste. In caste, how in Indian society we got the purity and pollution of blood. आमे जाति व्यवस्था रे बा वर्ण व्यवस्था रे किमती जो रक्तर पवित्रता अछि अपवित्रता अछि छुआ छुआ भेदभाव अछि लुई डुमो तांकर गोटे होमो हायरकियस गोटे बुक अछि से बुक्स रे से तादरे लेखिबा को चाहितिले so that is why these are the important sociologists of Indian society. They had written a lot of book in that period between 1910 and towards 1910 मसीहा परे परे एवं परवर्ती समय जेतेबेले मुंबई यूनिवर्सिटी जेतेबेले फास्ट सोशियोलॉजी एस्टाब्लिश हैला and established by um, Patrick Gates ଏବଂ ପରବର୍ତ୍ତୀ ସମୟରେ ତାକୁ ଲିଡିଂ କଲେ ଜିଏସ୍ ଗୁରେ ଏବଂ ଜିଏସ୍ ଗୁରେଙ୍କର ଫ୍ରେଣ୍ଡ କେମ୍ କାପାଡିଆ ଇରାବତୀ କାର୍ବେ ଡିପି ମୁଖାର୍ଜୀ ଏସେଟ୍ରା ଅଲ୍ ଦ୍ୟାଟ୍ ଦି sociologist ତାପରେ actually the Indian sociology it has explored the development of Indian sociology. It has been progress. So that is why, so these are the different subject. So latter part of the 1970 until now, a different sociologist. They have their wide range of subject like social structure and social relations, cultural values, kinship, ideology, cultural transactions, symbolism of life, the marriage, the family, the kinship, the caste structure, the recent changes in caste structure, the Varna Vyavastha. So all that things it has been studied. So that is why, so all these things they borrowed from the uh, historical anthropological ancient studies. But it is a critical point of the Indological view. It's a critique of Indological perspective. The Indologist they borrow from the idea from the Orientalist. ମୁଁ ତୁମକୁ କହିଛି ଓରିଏଣ୍ଟାଲିଷ୍ଟ ହେଉଛନ୍ତି ଯେଉଁମାନେ those who study about the East ବା ପ୍ରାଚ୍ୟ ଆଉ ପାଶ୍ଚାତ୍ୟ ଦିଟା ଅଛି। ପାଶ୍ଚାତ୍ୟକୁ ଆମେ କହୁଛନ୍ତି ୱେଷ୍ଟ ଆଉ ପ୍ରାଚ୍ୟକୁ ଆମେ କହୁଛନ୍ତି ଇଷ୍ଟ। ଇଷ୍ଟ କହିଲେ ଖାଲି ଇଣ୍ଡିଆନ୍ ସୋସାଇଟିକୁ ବୁଝିବ ନାହିଁ, ଏଠି ଆଫଗାନିସ୍ତାନ ବୁଝଉଛି, ଏଠି ପାକିସ୍ତାନ ବୁଝଉଛି, ଏଠି ବାଂଲାଦେଶ ବୁଝଉଛି, ଏଠି ଶ୍ରୀଲଙ୍କା ବୁଝଉଛି। So South Asian countries जो गुड़ी का अच्छी so they became East. So East by Eastern study जो माने करंती से माने को Orientalist बोली हुआ जाए। तेणु ओरिएंटालिस्ट जो माने सेमाने की सेमाने मध्य सेमानकर जो रिसर्च अछि सेमानकर स्टडी अछि ताकू जड़े जड़े इंडियन सोशियोलॉजिस्ट रंगना होची हिमानी बनर्जी से जो स्ट्रक्चरल जो कलर सिंबलिक कल्चरल कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऊपर जहाँ लिखी यू शुड हैव टू गो थ्रू दिस लाइन्स इन पेज नंबर 14 on the upper stanza. So Banerjee has written so how it is necessary to translate from European studies and because the Britishers they hello huh. so so that is why secondly the Britishers became the lawgiver. They always try to give the laws to the Indian society, Indian culture. So that is why so it is necessary for the Britishers to study about the Indian society to make a frame of reference on the Indian administration. So sociologists like A.R. Desai, you know that A.R. Desai's book Rural Sociology in India, it is a masterpiece book. A.R. Desai in his critiques that viewing Indian society from the lens of culture and providing a textual view is far removed from the real India with its inequalities, diversities, dialectics and exploitations. A.R. Desai तांकर जो स्टडी रे से कहउचंती विलेज स्टडी करथिले A.R. Desai विलेज स्टडी करिया भितर A.R. Desai कहउचंती इंडियन सोसाइटी रे खाली कल्चरल हेरिटेज अच्छी नुह एटी डिफरेंट स्टिग्मा अच्छी एटी इनइक्वालिटीज अच्छी एटी एक्सप्लॉइटेशन अच्छी एटी डायलेक्टिक्स अच्छी एटी डाइवर्सिटीज अच्छी so that is why it is Indian society. So that we call it's a Indological discourse. So that we call it's Indology, how the Indian sociologists are the different historian and the invaders, they study the Indian society in a different manner. They had written in Sanskrit and Persian literature. So that is why the present sociologists are the modern sociologists. They borrow from all these ideas from the different sociologists and Indian or the British administrator, and they put into this Indian culture and society they had started to writing about different article on Indian society and the development and progress of the Indian society. So that you call it's a Indological discourse. So let us come to this colonial discourse. Colonial discourse that implies how the colonial period has established in India. Colonial ହଉଛି colony ରୁ colonial ହେଇଛି. Colony ଅର୍ଥ ହଉଛି ଉପନିବେଶ বা ଯେତେବେଳେ ବ୍ରିଟିଶର୍ସ ମାନେ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆକୁ ଆସିଲେ ବା ଯେତେବେଳେ ଫ୍ରେଞ୍ଚ ମାନେ ମଧ୍ୟ ସେମାନେ ମଧ୍ୟ କଲୋନିଆଲ ରୁଲର ଥିଲେ, ଫ୍ରେଞ୍ଚ ଇଷ୍ଟ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆ କମ୍ପାନୀ ଥିଲା, ତାପରେ ଡଚ୍ ମାନେ ମଧ୍ୟ ଆସିଥିଲେ, ସେମାନେ ସେମାନେ ମଧ୍ୟ ସେମାନଙ୍କର ଗୋଟେ କଲୋନିଆଲ ପର୍ପସ ବିଜନେସ ପର୍ପସରେ ଆସିଲେ, ବଟ୍ ଆଫ୍ଟର ଦ ୱାର ଅଫ ପଲାସି, so the britishers so um, Britishers they tries to establish its supremacy on Indian society and the Indian dominance and Indian sovereignty. So that is why they started their rules on Indian society. So ଯେତେବେଳେ ସେମାନେ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆନ ସୋସାଇଟିକୁ ରୁଲ କରିବା ପାଇଁ ଚିନ୍ତା କଲେ, ଯେତେ ସବୁ ବ୍ରିଟିଶ ଆଡମିନିଷ୍ଟ୍ରେଟର ମାନେ ଅଛନ୍ତି ସେମାନେ ସେଥିପାଇଁ ସେମାନେ ତାଙ୍କର ସବୁ ବ୍ରିଟିଶ ଆନ୍ଥ୍ରୋପୋଲୋଜିଷ୍ଟ ଯୋଉମାନେ ଥିଲେ ସେମାନଙ୍କୁ ସବୁ କାମରେ ଲଗାଇଦେଲେ। ସେମାନେ ଦେଖିଲେ ଯେ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆନ ସୋସାଇଟିରେ ଯୋଉ କାଷ୍ଟ ସିଷ୍ଟମ ଅଛି, ଯୋଉ ବର୍ଣ୍ଣ ବ୍ୟବସ୍ଥା ଅଛି, ଯୋଉ ରିଲିଜିୟସ ଷ୍ଟିଗ୍ମା ଅଛି, ବିଲିଫ୍ସ ଅଛି, ତାଙ୍କୁ ଏତେ ବୁଝେଇବା ସହଜ ନୁହଁ। ତେଣୁକରି ତାଙ୍କ ଉପରେ ଷ୍ଟଡି କରିବାକୁ ଦରକାର, ତାଙ୍କ ଉପରେ ଗୋଟେ ପ୍ରପର ସୋସିଓଲୋଜିକାଲ ଆଣ୍ଡ ଆନ୍ଥ୍ରୋପୋଲୋଜିକାଲ ଷ୍ଟଡି ଇଟ୍ ସୁଡ୍ ବି ନେସେସରି। ସୋ ଦ୍ୟାଟ୍ ଇଜ ୱାଇ the census of India was started uh, 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 by the Britishers. So basically, Herbert Risley, Sir Herbert Risley, has started his census plan. J. H. Hutton, um, a British sociologist who has written a book on caste in India, J. H. Hutton, important anthropologist and sociologist of the last century, J. H. Hutton, who has written a book on caste in India. So J. H. Hutton, Herbert Isley, Morgan, Maclean, Lubbock, Taylor, Strack, and Fraser, like the anthropologists, they study about the Indian society, and because but the spreading of Christianity and so that we call the conversion of religion. ସେମାନେ ଚାହିଁଲେ ଯେ ଭାରତରେ ୟୁରୋପିଆନ ମାନେ ଚାହିଁଲେ ବା ବ୍ରିଟିଶର୍ସ ମାନେ ଚାହିଁଲେ ସେମାନେ ଯୋଉ ପିପୁଲ ଅଫ ଦି ଇଣ୍ଡିଆନ ସୋସାଇଟି ଅଛନ୍ତି, ଭାରତର ଲୋକମାନେ ଅଛନ୍ତି, ସେମାନଙ୍କୁ କେତେ ପରିମାଣରେ ଆମେ ତାଙ୍କୁ ହିନ୍ଦୁଇଜମରୁ ଆମେ ଖ୍ରୀଷ୍ଟିଆନିକୁ କନଭର୍ସନ କରିପାରିବା, ଯୋଉଟା କୁହାଯାଏ ରିଲିଜିୟସ୍ କନଭର୍ସନ ଫ୍ରମ ୱାନ ରିଲିଜିୟନ ଟୁ ଆନାଦର ରିଲିଜିୟନ। ସେଇଥିପାଇଁ ସେମାନେ ଭାରତର ସେନ୍ସସ୍ ଷ୍ଟଡି କରିବା ଆରମ୍ଭ କଲେ। ସୋ ଦ୍ୟାଟ୍ ଇଜ ୱାଇ the British colonial regime, after the arrival of the British, knowledge of the Indian society began to grow very rapidly from 1760 onwards. 1760 ମସିହା ପରବର୍ତ୍ତୀ ସମୟରୁ ଯେତେବେଳେ ବ୍ରିଟିଶର୍ସ ମାନେ ଆସିଲେ, ତା ପରବର୍ତ୍ତୀ ଅବସ୍ଥାରେ ସେମାନେ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆନ ସୋସାଇଟି ବିଷୟରେ ଜାଣିବାକୁ ଚେଷ୍ଟା କଲେ, ନଲେଜ ଗେନ୍ କରିବାକୁ ଚେଷ୍ଟା କଲେ ଏବଂ କିଛି ଲେଖାଲେଖି ଏ ବିଷୟରେ ଆରମ୍ଭ ହେଲା। So that is why, so this is the beginning period. So this is the beginning period. This is the beginning period of the history of Indian society. So that is why we can stated that uh, so uh, so Indian economy and polity changed tremendously. ସେମାନେ ଦେଖୁଥିଲେ ଯେ କିଭଳି ଭାବରେ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆନ ସୋସାଇଟି ଇଣ୍ଡିଆନ କଲଚରର ଚେଞ୍ଜ ଆସୁଛି, ଇଣ୍ଡିଆନ ସୋସାଇଟି ଥ୍ରୁ ତାପରେ ସେମାନେ ଚେଷ୍ଟା କଲେ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆର କମ୍ୟୁନିକେସନ ଡେଭଲପମେଣ୍ଟ କେମିତି ହବ, କେମିତି ଟ୍ରାନ୍ସପୋର୍ଟ ଆଣ୍ଡ କମ୍ୟୁନିକେସନଟା ଡେଭଲପମେଣ୍ଟ କରିବ, କେମିତି ସ୍କୁଲ କଲେଜ ସବୁ ଏଷ୍ଟାବ୍ଲିଶ ହବ, କେମିତି ଆଡମିନିଷ୍ଟ୍ରେସନ ବା ରେଭିନ୍ୟୁଟା କେମିତି ରେଭିନ୍ୟୁ ଇମ୍ପୋଜିସନ ହବ। ସୋ ସେଇଥିପାଇଁ ବ୍ରିଟିଶ କଲୋନିଆଲିଜିମ ଉପରେ ବ୍ରିଟିଶ କଲୋନିଆଲିଜିମ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆନ ସୋସାଇଟି ଉପରେ ଷ୍ଟଡି କରିବା ପାଇଁ ବେଶୀ ଧ୍ୟାନ ଦେଲେ। ତେଣୁ ଏଇଥିପାଇଁ ସେ ଫୁଲ ଫ୍ଲେଜେଡ ଷ୍ଟଡି କରିବାକୁ ଆରମ୍ଭ କଲେ ଏବଂ ବର୍ନାର୍ଡ କୋନ୍ argues that uh, society of India offered a much different situations and compared to American, Indian or African colonies since 18th century. So that is why uh, so that is why uh, the Britishers they establish and they study about the Indian society. So so we can say that how they study. So they study the full-fledged uh, Indian society and agricultural economy, political. They see how Indian society it is best. Hello, hello, am I audible? Hello, hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
ଭଲ ଭାବରେ ଶୁଭି ପାରୁଛି ତ?
हाँ सर.
ମୋର
yes,
ଟିକେ
sir.
ନେଟୱାର୍କ ପ୍ରୋବ୍ଲେମ ହଉଛି, ଠିକ ଅଛି। ତ ତେଣୁକରି ସେମାନେ
Hello.
ହ୍ୟାଲୋ, ହଁ
Yes, sir. Actually, it's a humble request to you, sir. When you are going to complete a particular topic or content, so it's a request, sir. You ask if we have any doubt, so that you can clear it. No,
yes. So thank you.
after completing a, yes, yes, yes. Thank you,
Yes,
thank you.
because time is very short. So
Yes,
within this time, so
you
please
can clear it within a short period. Yes.
yes, please go through this book and if any query, please ask me. Because my mentor,
Sure, sure.
uh, just I am trying to. It is not at all. It is not at all possible to complete this portion within 30 or 40 minutes. So ମୁଁ ସବୁବେଳେ ଚେଷ୍ଟା କରୁଛି 1.5 ଘଣ୍ଟା ଲବା ପାଇଁ, କିନ୍ତୁ ମେଣ୍ଟର ଆମର ସେଠି ଭାରି ବ୍ୟସ୍ତ ହଉଛନ୍ତି ଯେ ଶୀଘ୍ର ବନ୍ଦ କର ବୁଝିପାରୁଛ ତ?
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes.
ହଁ
I can
ଏଇଟା
understand.
ହଉଛି ଗୋଟେ so basically it is a basic unit. It was the first unit about the Indian society. So how Indian
Mm.
society it has developed, how the Britishers at the colonial period or the colonial rulers they tries to emphasis to study about the Indian society. ସେମାନଙ୍କର କିଛି ଗୋଟେ ଇଣ୍ଟରେଷ୍ଟ ଥିଲା ଯେ ସେମାନେ ବିନା ମର୍ଜିରେ ବା ସେମାନଙ୍କର ଗୋଟେ ଏମିତି ଇଣ୍ଟରେଷ୍ଟ ନଥିଲା ଯେ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆନ ସୋସାଇଟିଟା ଗୋଟେ ହାଇ ଲେବୁଲରେ ଥୋଇଦେବେ, but they have certain interest to rule as much as a long period. So that is why they study the Indian society. ଯେତେବେଳେ ସେମାନେ ପ୍ରଥମେ ଷ୍ଟଡି କଲେ ସେମାନେ ଦେଖିଲେ ଯେ ଅଟୋମେଟିକାଲି ଦ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆନ ସୋସାଇଟି was a full-fledged agricultural economy and political institution. It is based on the kingship. So there were different rulers, a legal system based on the particularly written law. So everything it was in a written law. So taxation is there. So it's a record keeping and a set of cultural religious system, both Hindus and Muslims. So they find from this the literature. So that is why the Hinduism and Islam or the Muslim they became the dominant ruler in that period. So that is why there is a coordination between the Hinduism and Islam. There is a coordination between the Hindus and Muslims. So that is why it is very critical period when the Britishers came to India and they study and observe the Indian people. So they should try to disturb the relationship between Hindus and Muslims. So that is why after that they had done this. But their mission is different. Their mission was uh, to control the Indian society, control the Indian administration through their administrative setup. So, so, so any questions? Hello?
Sir, that means divide and rule. What they have done
Yes,
in between.
they have
Yes,
done
yes, 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 yes.
between Hindus and Muslims. So
Correct, sir.
that is
Correct.
why he studied the so that is why he studied the Indian society. ଯେତେବେଳେ ସେମାନେ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆକୁ ଆସିଲେ ସେମାନେ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆନ ସୋସାଇଟିକୁ କାହିଁକି ଷ୍ଟଡି କରିବାକୁ ଚେଷ୍ଟା କଲେ ଯେ ସେମାନେ ଚେଷ୍ଟା କଲେ ଆକ୍ଚୁଆଲି କଣ ସବୁ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆନ ସୋସାଇଟି ଭିତରେ ଅଛି and how Indian society it became a heritage and became a worldly culture in the world. ସେମାନେ ଦେଖିଲେ ଯେ so automatically so there is a there is a cordial and harmony between Hindus and Muslims and different caste structure. So that is
Sir,
why, yes.
sir, why they trying to Indian peoples to Christian?
So uh, because the Britishers when they came to India, uh, so basically so Charles Grant, one of the earliest missionaries leader who came to India in basically in the period of 1774 and between the period of 1790, 1774 ଆଉ 1790 ଭିତରେ ଜଣେ ଆସିଥିଲେ, ତାଙ୍କ ନାଁ ହେଉଛି ଚାର୍ଲସ ଗ୍ରାଣ୍ଟ। ସେମାନଙ୍କର ଉଦ୍ଦେଶ୍ୟ ଥିଲା so observation on the state of society and the Asiatic subjects of Great Britain, morals and the means of improving it. And so that is why so their intention was to avoid the Hinduism and Islam, and their intention was to establish a Christian rulers, a Christianity and the spread of Christianity in India. So that is period the missionaries came to India, and they travel all part of Indian society from one part to another part, from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, and they entered the remote area, and on the basis of the service to the people, the service to the people, uh, and opening of the medical, opening of the college and universities. So that is why the Indian people uh, they have some inclination towards to missionary or the Christianity, and they convert to the Christianity. So that is why uh, um, the missionaries' intention was very clear cut. But ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ କଥା ହଉଛି, ସେମାନେ ଚାହୁଁଥିଲେ ଯେ ଯେ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆନ ପିପୁଲ ମାନଙ୍କୁ ଯଦି ହିନ୍ଦୁଇଜିମ ରୁ ଆଉ ଇସଲାମ ରୁ ଯଦି ଆମେ ଖ୍ରୀଷ୍ଟିଆନ କୁ ଯଦି କନଭର୍ସନ କରିଦବୁ, ତାହେଲେ ଆଉ ତାଙ୍କୁ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆକୁ ରୁଲ କରିବା ପାଇଁ ଅସୁବିଧା ହେବ ନାହିଁ। ବଟ୍ ଏର୍ଲି ମିଶନାରିଜ, ଯୋଉମାନେ ସବୁ ମିଶନାରିଜ ମାନେ ଆସିଲେ, ସେମାନେ ଦେଖିଲେ how caste system is an obstacle to the conversion of Christianity. ସେମାନେ ଦେଖିଲେ ଯେ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆନ ସୋସାଇଟି ଭିତରେ ଯୋଉ କାଷ୍ଟ ସିଷ୍ଟମ ଅଛି, ଯୋଉ ହାରମୋନି ଅଛି ବିଟୱିନ୍ ଦି ହିନ୍ଦୁଜ ଆଣ୍ଡ ମୁସଲିମ, so that it obstacle on the way of their Christianity. So that is why religious conversion it does not happen. So this part, so from time to time, so through the census survey, they tries to how much caste group, how much Varna group, how much religious group is there, and so initially they started the census in India. So that is why. So it is a very important part of the British administrator or the colonial ruler to rule the Indian society. So, but the Britishers uh, they have done also certain very good job for the Indian people, because the Indian people they became very innocent, they became illiterate, and they became underdeveloped. So the Britishers, some of the British administrators like Jones, like O'Malley, Crooks, and different administrator of the British people. They also, so you know that the man, so that you call the Jones, Sir William Jones. So see, he first time he translate Manu Sanghita. He translate Manu Sanghita in 1794. Manu Samhita, so it is Manusmriti, जोटा कि मनुस्मृति कुहाଯାଏ, जोउतरे कि जो भारतीय सामाजिक व्यवस्थार जो लीगल प्रोसीजर अच्छी, लीगल एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन अच्छी, ता भितरे मनुसंहितारे लिखा जाइछि। कास्ट सिस्टम कुओ कि रिलीजियस सिस्टम कुओ कि वर्ण व्यवस्था कुओ कि जहाँ भी कुओ सब मनुसंहितारे, बा अपर कास्ट लोअर कास्ट कुओ कि ब्राह्मणिकल पर्सपेक्टिव कुओ कि फोर वर्णज कथा कुओ सब मनुसंहिता लिखा है, जोटा कि सर जोन्स विलियम जोन्स का
So he has studied about the Manusankita. So after that, India, the imperial gazetteers, Britishers ମାନେ ଗୋଟେ imperial gazetteers କୁହାଯାଏ. Gazetteers. Do you know the gazetteers? So hello, my dear friends. Do you know the gazetteers?
No, sir.
Hello.
No, sir.
So that is called the imperial
Hello.
gazetteers. Imperial gazetteers. So that is called imperial gazetteers, in which it's a very books on the like of the books, and it is a anthropological techniques to study about a particular region and clear cut data about the Indian society. ଭାରତୀୟ ସମାଜ ବିଷୟରେ ଗୋଟେ anthropological data clear cut ଭାବରେ ଅଛି, relating to the population, relating to the culture, relating to the census, relating to the geographical locations, everything it has written in imperial gazetteers. So if it is possible, please go to the a big library like state library or university library. You can see the imperial gazetteers. So ବୁଝିପାରୁଛ ପିଲେ? Hello. Hello, my dear students. Imperial gazetteers. Hello, Sami.
Yes, sir.
If you are interested, then you go to a big library and
Yes.
developed library and see the imperial gazetteers of India. When the researchers research about anything, they go through these imperial gazetteers. ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ ସବୁ PhD କରୁ, ସେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ ଯେତେବେଳେ finally ଆମେ ଗୋଟେ ଏରିଆ ବିଷୟରେ ବା କଲଚର ବିଷୟରେ ଜାଣିବାକୁ ଚାହୁଁ, so automatically we goes to the imperial gazetteers. So only the Britishers, they started writing about the imperial gazetteers. So that is why the Britishers also they started census and survey also. So my dear Sami, please mute your microphone. So census and survey. So basically, you know that Herbert Risley, Sir Herbert Risley, his book, The Peoples of India. Herbert Risley, the British administrator and anthropologist, he had written a book, so The Peoples of India in 1901. Sir Dr. Francis Buchanan, G.S. Guha. So they study the Indian society through census and survey. So from that survey in 1901, they study about the endogamy, the commensality, the fixed occupations, the common ritual practices. So everything they study in census. So basically, they also study about the Herbert Islay. He study about the tribal, the functional attitude of the tribal and the people, the sectarian views. They study about the caste. They study about the national caste, the caste and the migration. So everything. So the changing functions of the caste. So everything they study from the census. ସେମାନେ ସେନ୍ସସ୍ ରେ ବହୁତ ଗୁଡ଼ିଏ କଥା ସେମାନେ ଷ୍ଟଡି କରିଥିଲେ. So later period, J.H. Hutton ମୁଁ ତମକୁ କହିଛି J.H. Huttonଙ୍କର ଗୋଟେ ବୁକ୍ ହଉଛି କାଷ୍ଟ ଇନ୍ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆ. ସେଥିରେ କାଷ୍ଟ ଇନ୍ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆରେ ସେ he has find 14 factors for the emerging the caste system in India. ସେ ଭାରତରେ ଯୋଉ ଜାତି ବ୍ୟବସ୍ଥାର ଉତ୍ଥାନ ହବାର 14ଟା କାରଣ ବିଷୟରେ ସେ ଲେଖିଛନ୍ତି. How the taboos, how the beliefs, how the religion, how the varna vyavastha, etc. Like 14 factors responsible for the emerging of caste system in India. So that is why J.H. Hutton's book Caste in India, it is so much important for the study of Indian society. So latter part, the Britishers they study also village and cities. So basically, Mackenzie's collection, Charles Metcalfe study on the Indian village, and Charles Metcalfe, you know that he explained that he says that the Indian village became a little republic. Indian village became a little republic. Charles Metcalfe, in his book, he studied about the villages of India, and Henry Mann, he also studied about the Indian villages. Latter part, the Indian sociologists like A.R. Desai, he study about the rural sociology, and S.C. Dubey, India's village. He study about the India's village. Syamacharan Dubey, one of the eminent sociologists of India, S.C. Dubey and A.R. Desai, they study about the Indian villages. And after that, they also Henry Mann and Gordon Powell of the uh, Powell, they became the British anthropologists. They study about the vegan cultures. So that is why they establish uh, um, sociology as an independent branch in Indian society, and how they study the Indian society in a Indological manner. So that is why, so that is called, it's a Indology, and it's a and the Indology, it has a link between colonial discourse. So how after the colonial period, uh, the Indian sociology or the Indian society, it emerged as one of the major civilization of the world. And you know that the Britishers, they tries to divide and rule policy in Indian society, and they divide the caste group, they divide the religious group, they they divide the Indian culture, and they bring a synthesis of the British administration in Indian society. And that is why they study the Indian society in a sociological and in a anthropological manner. So that you call it's a Indian society. So my dear students, so any questions, please tell me. Hello, hello, my dear learners. Any questions, please tell me. Please ask me.
Hello.
Sami, please.
Hello. Sir, why Britishers are more interested to study about Indian culture, Indian traditions, because India is a resourceful country, and they want to.
Very good. Yes.
Okay.
Maybe.
They want to exploit the Indian minerals.
Right, sir.
Now it is time to conclude.
Yes, yes, yes. Yes, hello.
Sir, we want to listen
Hello.
you more, but
Sami.
yes, sir.
हेलो सर हाउ
hello.
माने को टाइप रो क्वेश्चन आसीबो सर ए टॉपिक रो आसिले
ए टॉपिक रु तुमे देखो ए टॉपिक रे लास्ट रे सब अछि चेक योर प्रोग्रेस रे अछि 10 लाइन नो क्वेश्चन अछि 5 लाइन रो क्वेश्चन अछि आ 250 मार्क्स रो क्वेश्चन अछि एमती क्वेश्चन सब आसीबो से क्लासरूम रे डिस्टर्ब होउची क्लासरूम रे डिस्टर्ब होउची सर रंजित सर
आज्ञा
ए भारी डिस्टर्ब होउची सेठी
ना ना से डिस्टर्ब
so Sami and Nami so a type of questions ଆସିବ ତୁମେ just you go through these books and check your progress hello
यस सर
ବହି
यस
ପଛରେ ସବୁ क्वेश्चन ଲେଖା ଯାଇଛି ପ୍ରୋସେସ ଲେଖା ଯାଇଛି please you go through these books and any problem then you may also contact my WhatsApp number
Sure, sir.
Yes,
Sure.
sir.
Thank you.
ମୋର WhatsApp number ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କ ପାଖରେ ଅଛି ତ
Again. Yes, sir.
9438
Group रे sir.
ग्रुप रे नुहे तुमे मते ग्रुप रे अछि if it is possible then you contact independently to me हला
Sure, sure.
यस सर
ମୁଁ ତମକୁ ବୁଝେଇ ପାରିବି ଏକୁଟିଆ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଯାହା କାମ ଥାଉ ନଥାଉ ତୁମେ ଯେତେବେଳେ କ୍ୱେଶ୍ଚିନ ପଚାରିବ କଣ ପଚାରିବ ମୁଁ ତାକୁ ବୁଝେଇ ଦେଇ ପାରିବି ହେଲା
Again.
so because you are my friends and my so that you called my learners. So thank you everybody to hear my Indological discourse and colonial discourse. So these are the important topics for the introduction of the Indian society, to know and learn about the Indian society. So because Indian society, its history is very ancient and very past. So the ancient literature, the historical archaeology, all that they study about the Indological discourse. So the colonial discourse also based on the Indological discourse and Indological ideology. So the Britishers, they tries to, just like Shami, he tell that, so the major intention is lies there to exploit the India's mines and minerals, and for their commercial and business purpose, but the profit motivation, they tries to capture the Indian society, and so that is why they study the Indian society. But some of the Britishers, their intention is different. They became the positive. So they study the Indian society, they study the Sanskrit, the Persian language, and it is their intention, it is their interest, it is their research. So that is why uh, the study of Indology and the study of Orientology, and from that the Indological perspective, from this colonial perspective, it is so much needed for the Indian sociologists to study and go forward. So that is why this is all about the block one, uh, phase one. So day after tomorrow we will finish this block. So thank you everybody.
Thank you,
So
sir.
thank you everybody.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Stay safe. So my dear learners, stay safe.
You too,
Yes,
sir.
sir. Yes, sir.
Thank
So
you,
thank
thank
you.
you,
Thank you.
thank you,
Thank you, Ranjit bhai.
Dr. Parida.
Bhai pranam.
You have successfully completed the class and also complied to the queries of our learners. So thank you very much. Thank you also to the learners. They are cooperating for taking the classes. Then thank you all. Once again, thank you all.
Okay, sir. Bye.